Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that shortcuts you to being well-informed.
Uh-huh.
We take a stack of sources, wrestle them to the ground, and, pull out the really useful stuff.
Yeah, the good bits.
Exactly. Today, we're plunging into a real management classic, high output management, by the legendary Andrew S. Grove.
That's right. And our mission here really is pretty simple. We want to give you actionable management insights.
Things you can actually use.
Things you can use right away, yeah. Whether you're leading a big team, a small team, or, frankly, just want to be more effective in your own work.
Like a personal cheat sheet.
Kind of like your personal cheat sheet to high-performance thinking. That's a good way to put it.
And Grove, this wasn't just theory for him, was it?
Oh, not at all. This guy's story is incredible. He fled Hungary, was absolutely central to Intel's founding and, well, massive growth.
President, CEO.
President, CEO, even Times Man of the Year at one point. Plus, he spent years teaching at Stanford, testing these very ideas out.
With actual managers.
With real managers, in the trenches, getting feedback, refining the concepts. This book comes from, 20 years of his own hard-won experience.
Wow.
He called it Figuring Out What Makes Things Happen, and all those examples in the book. They came straight from the daily grind of the managers he taught. Their problems shaped the principles.
Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. High output management came out in 1983.
Yeah, ancient history in tech terms.
Right. So with everything that's happened since globalization, the internet, AI, is this stuff still relevant? Or is it, a museum piece?
That's the key question, isn't it? And honestly, it's remarkable how well Grove's core thinking holds up.
Really?
Yeah. Sure, the landscape totally different, but the basic challenge, organizing people, organizing resources to get stuff done, that hasn't changed. Grove himself said later that the fundamentals are pretty resilient. Globalization just raises the stakes, And technology gives us new tools, but the need for good management, if anything, it's even bigger now.
Okay, so let's talk about his main idea, this output-oriented approach. What does that actually look like day to day? It's more than just wanting good results, presumably.
It is. Think about manufacturing. There's this relentless focus on tangible results, efficiency, process.
Right. Building widgets.
Exactly. Grove wanted to bring that same kind of rigor to all parts of a business, including management itself. He points out that even at Intel, a chip maker, only a fraction of people actually worked on the production line.
Most people were doing other things.
Yeah, the vast majority were in support roles, engineering, admin, sales, you name it. His big point was, all that support work also needs to be managed with a laser focus on its contribution to the final output.
So it's not just the factory floor. It's the marketing campaign's results, the HR department's hiring effectiveness. Everything has an output.
Precisely. And this connects directly to what he called the most important sentence in the whole book.
Which is?
The output of a manager is the output of the organizational units under his or her supervision or influence.
Okay, say that again. The manager's output is the team's output.
Essentially, yes. Management isn't about your individual brilliance. It's a team sport. Your success is measured by what your team collectively achieves.
Right. So if it's all about the team's results, how does a manager actually, do that? How do they boost that output when they're pulled in a million directions?
Yeah, that's where managerial leverage comes in. It's a crucial concept.
Leverage, okay.
Think of it as the impact multiplier for a manager's actions. High productivity for a manager isn't about working insane hours yourself. It's about focusing your time and energy on the activities that have the biggest positive effect on your team's output. High leverage activities.
Finding the things where a little input from you creates a big result for the team. Like a lever.
Exactly like a lever, finding that fulcrum point. Instead of getting bogged down in low-impact tasks, you identify and prioritize the actions that ripple outwards.
That's powerful. And he also has this interesting idea about individuals thinking of themselves as a business. What's that about?
Yeah, that was pretty forward-thinking for the early 80s. He basically said, look, in this competitive world, you need to manage your own career like a business.
A business of one.
A business of one, constantly competing. You have to keep adding value, enhancing your skills, staying relevant. He asks this really sharp question.
What is it?
Are you adding real value or merely passing information along?
Oof. That hits home. Makes you really think about what you contribute each day.
Doesn't it? It's not just about being busy, it's about demonstrable value add. And this ties right back to his main thesis. These principles, production thinking, leverage, peak performance, they aren't just for factory bosses.
They're for everyone.
Anyone who wants to be more productive, more effective in their work can use these ideas. By thinking like this, you can analyze your own work, find ways to improve, just like optimizing a production line.
Okay, let's get into those production principles then. Grove directly compares management to manufacturing. First up is adding value. How does that work outside of the factory?
Okay, take any process. Customer support, writing a report, anything. As the thing moves through the process, its value should increase.
From raw material to finished product.
Right. He uses this great breakfast factory analogy. A raw egg has some value. Cook it, plate it with toast, serve it hot, the value goes way up.
Okay.
Same with, say, software development. Raw code gains value as it's compiled, tested, documented, integrated. The crucial insight here is find and fix problems at the earliest possible stage.
When the value is lowest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fixing a bug in the initial code is way cheaper than fixing it after the product has shipped.
Makes total sense. Catch mistakes early, saves time, saves money, saves headaches. What's next? Indicators. Measurement.
Yes, indicators. Grove is really strong on this. He basically says, any measurement is better than none.
You have to track something.
You have to track output, not just how busy people seem. Activity is an output. A sales team isn't measured by calls made, but by deals closed.
Right. The result?
So a good indicator measures the result of the work. And often you need paired indicators. Like for admin, maybe number of vouchers processed paired with the error rate, or square feet cleaned paired with a quality score.
Quantity and quality. Need both for the full picture.
You got it. Otherwise, you might incentivize the wrong behavior.
Okay, clear indicators focus on output. Got it. What about forecasting? That seems obvious for manufacturing, but maybe harder for, say, knowledge work.
It might seem less direct, yeah. But Grove argues the core principle anticipating future needs to manage output is still vital. He talks about building to order versus building to forecast.
Make it when someone asks versus guessing demand.
Right. Forecasting has risks you might guess wrong, build up inventory. But often it's necessary to meet expected demand or timelines. Think about staffing. HR might forecast hiring needs based on company growth projections.
Ah, okay. So it's about looking ahead, anticipating demands on your resources or time, even if it's not physical stock.
Exactly. Proactive anticipation. It helps you manage workload, allocate resources effectively, stay ahead of the game.
Which leads nicely into the next one, inventory. What does inventory look like if you're not making, I don't know, sofas?
Right. Not piles of cushions. Think of inventory as a buffer against unpredictability. In manufacturing, it's raw materials, parts, finished goods.
Okay.
In knowledge work or services, inventory might be things like well-documented standard operating procedures, a library of reusable code snippets, a cross-trained team that can handle surges.
Resources you can draw on quickly.
Exactly. And Grove's key point here is keep inventory at the lowest value stage possible. Raw eggs are more flexible than cooked breakfasts. Raw components are more flexible than half-built machines.
Lower value means more flexibility later on.
Right. So for knowledge work, maybe that means having well-organized research notes, low value, rather than dozens of fully drafted but unused reports, high value, less flexible.
Okay, so that buffer, that inventory, should be kept in its most basic, flexible form. Makes sense. Last one in this section, assuring quality. How do you build quality checks into non-physical work?
Same fundamental idea. You need inspection points throughout the process. Don't wait until the very end.
Catch defects early.
Catch defects early when they're cheapest and easiest to fix. Grove suggests 3 key stages. First, incoming inspection, like really reviewing a project brief before you start.
Check the requirements.
Second, in-process inspection, getting feedback on outlines, drafts, prototypes along the way.
Mid-course corrections.
And third, final inspection, that last quality check before delivery. He tells a great story about clearing a huge visa application backlog by using statistical sampling, a quality test, to speed things up without compromising accuracy.
So sampling can be a quality check too.
Absolutely. The core message is reject before investing further value. Don't polish a flawed foundation. Fix it early.
Build in those checks. Incoming, in process, final. It's a solid framework, even if you're writing code or managing projects instead of making widgets.
Totally. These production basics offer a really practical lens for looking at almost any kind of work.
All right, great foundation. Let's pivot now to managerial leverage. We touched on it, but let's dig deeper. How does a manager really boost their leverage day to day?
Yeah.
What separates high leverage output from just being busy?
Yeah, this is critical. Being busy, answering emails, going to meetings, that's activity. Output is the result of that activity for the team.
The team's achievement.
Right. Grove insists a manager has to actively shape that output. That means forming opinions, making clear judgments, setting direction, allocating resources effectively.
Actively steering the ship.
Exactly. It's about enabling the team to achieve more together than they could apart. He even shares his own schedule as Intel's president,
Oh, yeah.
showing how even his plant visits or teaching gigs were ultimately designed to contribute to Intel's overall output and strategy. It's intentional.
So it's about purpose behind the activity. He also talks about managing by wandering around MBWA. Seems a bit old school, maybe. Does that still work with remote teams and open offices?
The principle behind MBWA is timeless, I think. It's about proactively connecting, gathering unfiltered information, building rapport, sensing the team's pulse.
Getting out from behind the desk.
Yeah. Now, physically wandering might not always be feasible or even the best way anymore, but the spirit of it. Scheduling informal virtual check-ins, using chat tools for quick non-work connections, creating spaces for casual interaction, that's virtual MBWA.
So finding ways to have those informal touch points, regardless of location.
Precisely. It's about intentionally creating opportunities to connect beyond the formal meeting structure. You learn so much that way.
Okay. He also calls the manager an information filter and amplifier. What does that mean in practice?
Well, managers sit at crossroads of information, right?
Yeah.
Stuff flows down from above, up from the team, across from peers. It's often overwhelming.
Information overload.
Totally. So a key role is figuring out what's signal versus noise, what does my team really need to know, and then amplifying that crucial information, making sure it's clear, concise, and gets to the right people effectively.
And filtering upwards, too, presumably. Summarizing team issues for higher-ups.
Exactly. They're a critical node in the communication network. And it's not just data, is it? Grove talks about managers imparting values, too.
How so?
Through their actions. What a manager prioritizes, how they spend their time, how they allocate budget, who they recognize it all, sends powerful signals about what really matters.
Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. If you talk about quality but always push to cut corners on testing, your team gets the real message. Your behavior teaches the values.
Powerful stuff. Now let's talk about time. Grove hammers home the importance of timeliness for leverage. Why is acting fast so critical?
Because delay can kill leverage, opportunities disappear, small problems become big crises. He gives this example of a valued employee thinking about leaving. If the manager drags their feet addressing the concerns, that person might just walk. Timely intervention could save them. On the flip side, there's negative leverage.
Actions that actually hurt output.
Yeah, like showing up late and unprepared for a meeting, you waste your time and everyone else's. That actively reduces the team's productivity. So, being prompt and decisive amplifies the good and minimizes the bad.
Timely and prepared. Key ingredients. He also talks about focusing on high-leverage activities. How do you even identify those? It feels like everything is urgent sometimes.
It takes practice and, honestly, good judgment. It's about seeing the bigger picture. Grove uses customer complaints as an example.
Okay.
You need to address them all, sure. But the high-leverage manager spots patterns. They see complaint X isn't isolated. It points to a deeper flaw in the product or process.
So they dig into that one specifically.
Right. They investigate that one personally because fixing the root cause has way more impact than just handling individual complaints. It's about discerning which fires are worth pouring your personal energy into for the biggest systemic benefit.
Seeing the forest for the trees, that makes sense. And delegation. That's a classic leverage tool, isn't it?
Huge leverage. It multiplies your impact through your team. But Grove points out why managers sometimes hesitate.
Like what?
Maybe they actually enjoy doing the task themselves, or they don't fully trust their team members yet. He warns against insincere delegation, handing off a task but then micromanaging it to death.
Right. That doesn't help anyone.
No. His advice: start by delegating tasks you know well. Build that trust. Effective delegation empowers the team, frees you up for more strategic stuff, and boosts overall output. It's a win-win-win.
Okay, good advice. Now, Grove also loops back and applies those production principles directly to the manager's own work. Let's quickly recap those. First, identifying the limiting step.
Yeah, just like in a factory line, there's often a bottleneck in a manager's workflow. Maybe it's signing off on approvals or a weekly report they have to generate.
The thing that paces everything else.
Exactly. Identify that constraint, the thing that has to happen on a schedule, and then structure your other work and your team's work around it efficiently.
Optimize the flow around the bottleneck. Got it.
Oh.
Next, batching similar tasks.
Super practical. Instead of constantly switching gears, email, report writing, calls, back to email groups, similar activities together.
Like dedicated time blocks.
Yep. Set aside time just for email, just for strategic thinking, just for one-on-ones. It cuts down on that mental friction of context switching and makes you way more efficient.
Makes sense. Then standardization. How do managers standardize their work?
For recurring tasks, develop a standard process or checklist. Don't reinvent the wheel every time you have to, say, onboard a new hire or prepare a budget forecast.
Creates consistency, saves brain power.
Right. But, and this is key, Grove warns against blindly following procedures. You still need to understand the why behind them so you can adapt when the situation changes. Standardization frees you up for critical thinking, it doesn't replace it.
Good distinction. Use procedures as tools, not rigid rules. And the last one was regularity, making the workload more predictable.
Yeah, striving for a smoother, more predictable workflow, like a well-run factory, not a chaotic job shop that just reacts to crises.
How did you do that?
Yeah.
Management seems inherently unpredictable sometimes.
Part of it is that proactive element. Grove talks about looking for time bombs, potential problems brewing under the surface.
Finding issues before they explode.
Exactly. By anticipating and addressing things early, you prevent a lot of those disruptive emergencies and maintain a more regular, efficient flow. It takes discipline, but it pays off.
Proactive problem finding. Okay, these principles offer a really useful toolkit for managing your own time and energy as a manager.
Definitely. They bring structure to the often chaotic world of management.
Let's talk meetings. They get such a bad rap, often seen as time wasters. But Grove calls them the medium of managerial work. Why so essential in his view?
Because fundamentally, that's where a lot of key managerial work happens. He argues they're essential for two main things: exchanging information and making decisions.
Okay, the core functions.
Right. They're the main way managers sync up, share knowledge, solve problems together, and align on direction. He splits them into two basic types:
We are.
process-oriented and mission-oriented.
Okay, let's start with process-oriented. What falls under that?
These are your regular scheduled meetings. Think one-on-ones, staff meetings, operation reviews. Their purpose is ongoing knowledge sharing and keeping the wheels turning smoothly.
The regular heartbeat of the team.
Kind of, yeah. The regularity is key because people can prepare, and it allows managers to batch tasks like giving feedback or sharing updates efficiently.
Okay, break down those types. One-on-ones, just manager and report. What's Grove's take?
Crucially, the agenda should primarily be set by the subordinate. It's their time to raise issues, discuss progress, ask questions, get coaching.
So the manager's role is more listening and guiding.
Primarily listening, asking good questions, problem solving together. It's a key opportunity for mutual teaching and building that relationship. Predictable frequency is vital.
Got it. Subordinate drives the agenda. What about staff meetings? The whole team together.
These are for the supervisor and their direct reports. Main goals: share information relevant to everyone, allow for peer-to-peer discussion and problem solving. The manager acts more like a facilitator.
Keeping things on track, ensuring everyone contributes.
Exactly. Leveraging the collective brain power of the team.
And the third type, operation reviews. They sound more formal.
They usually are. These often involve people who don't normally work directly together, maybe presentations to higher management or peers from other departments.
Makes the goal there.
Cross-functional learning and teaching. Sharing best practices, getting broader perspectives, ensuring alignment across different parts of the organization.
Okay, so process meetings keep the regular flow going. What about the other type, mission-oriented meetings?
These are your ad hoc meetings, called for a specific purpose, usually to solve a particular problem or make a specific decision.
Like a task force meeting.
Pretty much. Grove stresses the importance of the chairman here.
Not necessarily the highest ranking person.
No, it's the person with the most at stake in the decision, the one who feels the problem most acutely. They usually call the meeting and are responsible for driving it to a conclusion.
Interesting distinction. So regardless of type, what makes any meeting effective according to Grove?
He lays out some clear guidelines. First, have a clear purpose communicated beforehand.
Know why you're meeting.
Absolutely. Second, participants need to come prepared. Third, stick to the agenda, manage the time. Fourth, and this is critical, end with clear action items.
Who does what by when?
Exactly. Assign owners, set deadlines, otherwise it was just talk. He also reminds us meetings are expensive in terms of collective manager time.
Yeah, that adds up fast.
So attendees should feel empowered to ask, is this meeting necessary? Do I need to be here? Could this be an email?
A healthy skepticism about meetings. Good advice. Okay, from meetings to decisions. Obviously a huge part of management.
The core, really. And Grove offers this brilliant, simple framework, 6 questions to ask before making any significant decisions.
6 questions. What are they?
Okay. 1, what decision needs to be made? Be specific.
Define the problem.
2, when does it have to be made? The deadline.
Timing is key.
3, who will actually decide? Clarify authority.
The decider. Yeah.
4, who needs to be consulted before the decision? Input gathering.
Who has relevant info or stakes?
5, who will ratify or veto the decision? Is there a higher approval needed?
The final sign-off.
And 6, who needs to be informed after the decision is made? Communication plan.
Wow, that covers all the bases.
Excellent.
Seems like it would prevent a lot of confusion and rework.
Totally. He uses a great Intel example about deciding where to build a new plant expansion in the Philippines. Walking through those 6 questions made the process clear and efficient.
And avoids decision paralysis or people feeling left out.
Right. He even tells the story about a manager who left Intel seeking more individual decision power, but came back because the lack of consultation elsewhere just led to chaos. Clear process and roles matter.
That really illustrates the point. It's not just about power, it's about process. Okay, let's talk planning. Grove sees this as an everyday activity, not just some annual retreat thing.
Yeah, he tries to demystify it. Planning isn't just for executives writing 5-year plans. You plan your route to work. You plan whether you need gas.
Small planning.
Exactly. He connects it back to those production ideas. Forecast demand, figure out your capacity, then adjust to meet the demand.
So apply that thinking general.
Yep. Step 1. What's the demand from your environment? What do your customers, internal or external, competitors, etc., need now and, say, a year from now? Focus on the gap between now and then.
Understand the future requirements.
Step 2. What are your current capabilities? What are you doing now? Be realistic.
Assess your current state.
Step 3. How do you bridge the gap? What decisions and actions do you need to take to get from your current state to meeting that future demand?
Make a plan to close the gap.
Right. He gives examples like a swamped marketing manager, Bruce, who plans specific steps. Delegate tasks, get temp help, explore long-term solutions, eventually ask for more staff. It's concrete action.
Or an engineer balancing demands from different groups.
Yeah, Cindy, the process engineer. She had to plan how to allocate her time and resources to meet competing demands. The key takeaway: the output of planning isn't necessarily a fancy document.
It's the decisions and actions.
Exactly. The choices made, the steps taken, that's the real result. He also advises not planning too frequently. You need time to see the results of past decisions. And definitely involve the people doing the work operating management in the planning.
Keep it grounded. He also brings up MBO management by objectives as a tool here.
Yeah, as a way to structure planning and goal setting. He uses the fun example of Queen Isabella and Columbus.
How does that work?
Isabella's objective: get richer for Spain. Columbus's objective agreed with Isabella: find a new sea route to the Indies. Then Columbus had sub-objectives: get ships, crew, supplies, sail west.
Cascading objectives.
Exactly. Linked objectives top to bottom. The key MBO elements are specific results defined, clear time frame, and mutual agreement between manager and subordinate on those objectives.
Specific, measurable, agreed upon, time-bound. Sounds like SMART goals, basically.
Similar concepts, yeah.
Here?
Creates clarity and alignment.
Okay, we've covered principles, processes, planning. Now let's shift to the players, the people. Grove kicks us off with a sports analogy.
Right. He comes back to this often. Management is a team sport, but team performance hinges on individual performance. You need good players playing well.
And he says people underperform for basically 2 reasons. They can't or they won't. Pretty blunt.
It is, but it's a useful diagnostic. He suggests asking if their life depended on it, could they do the task? If yes, it's probably motivation won't. If no, it's capability can't.
Ability versus willingness.
Exactly. And that tells the manager where to focus. Training for the can't, motivation for the won't. He argues the manager's single most important task is eliciting peak performance.
Through training and motivation.
Through both. But this section focuses mostly on motivation. And his core belief here is that motivation comes from within.
Managers can't just inject it.
No. But they can and must create the environment where motivated people thrive. Better motivation leads to better performance. It's that simple.
How do they create that environment?
By understanding what drives people. He touches on Maslow's hierarchy, though not by name: basic needs, survival, safety, then social needs, belonging, then esteem, recognition, and finally self-actualization, achieving potential.
Different things motivate different people at different times.
Right. Basic needs get people to show up, but it's those higher needs, feeling respected, achieving something meaningful, that drive peak performance.
Makes sense. He elaborates on esteem and self-actualization.
Yeah. Esteem or recognition, he says, is really in the eye of the beholder. A pat on the back might mean more than a bonus to one person. Money often matters most when it signifies status relative to peers.
Comparison.
Right. Self-actualization is that deep internal drive for competence, mastery, progress. It's about meeting your own standards. He tells that story of the Olympic fencer.
You'll quit.
Yeah, because they'd beaten everyone. There was no challenge left. The drive was internal challenge, not just external wins. The fear isn't failing others, it's failing yourself.
That internal benchmark. So how does this connect back to the sports analogy for managers?
He says managers should try to make work feel more like competitive sports. Tap into that drive for a personal best.
How?
Establish clear rules of the game, expectations, provide ways for people to measure themselves, to know if they're winning, create healthy competition.
Like that building czar competition at Intel.
Exactly. A simple scoring system for building maintenance dramatically boosted performance. People want to know the score. They want to compete, often just against their own previous performance. Removing that element can actually reduce motivation.
Interesting. Create challenge, clarity, and ways to measure success. Now, a really key concept he introduces is task-relevant maturity, or TRM. What's that?
TRM is critical for deciding how to manage someone. It's specific to a task. It's a blend of their ability, experience, and confidence related to that specific task.
Not overall maturity, but task-specific readiness.
Exactly. Someone could be high TRM for budgeting, but low TRM for presenting to executives. He breaks it down roughly. Low TRM needs lots of guidance. Medium TRM maybe needs skills or confidence boost. High TRM, ready for delegation.
And the manager style needs to match the TRM level for that task.
Precisely. Low TRM, you need to be highly structured, tell them what, when, how, give detailed instructions, check in frequently.
Very directive.
Medium TRM, maybe lacking confidence, focus on encouragement, support, building belief.
Yeah.
Lacking skills, focus on training.
Tailored support.
High TRM, back off. Delegate the task, trust them, be available for questions, but don't hover. Minimal intervention.
Give them space.
Yeah. And the manager's goal should always be to increase the TRM of their team members over time.
Why? What's the benefit?
Higher TRM means the person needs less of your direct supervision time. That frees you up, increases your leverage, plus they can take on more complex tasks, contributing more. It's development.
Makes sense. Develop your team, increase your leverage. He also mentions a perception gap.
Yeah, research showed managers often think they're being more communicative or delegating more than their team perceives them to be.
Ouch. We see ourselves differently.
We often do. It underlines the need for feedback. Ask your team how your style is landing. He also distinguishes being friendly from being a communicative manager.
What's the difference?
Being friends outside work doesn't automatically mean you're giving clear direction or useful feedback at work. True communication is about task-relevant involvement. He even cautions that close friendships can make it harder to be directive when the situation demands it.
Tricky balance sometimes. Okay, performance appraisals. Grove calls the manager judge and jury. That sounds intense.
It highlights the weight of it. Reviews are probably the single most important tool a manager has to influence someone's career path and performance.
So they need to be done well. How often?
Depends on TRM. Lower TRM, more frequent check-ins and feedback, maybe quarterly reviews. Higher TRM, maybe annually is fine, with regular one-on-ones in between. The ultimate goal is always to improve future performance.
And the biggest pitfall, he says.
Lack of clear expectations beforehand. If we don't know what we want, we are surely not going to get it. You can't assess performance fairly if the goals weren't clear up front.
Makes sense. How should performance be characterized?
A mix of things. Output measures, sure, the quantifiable results, but also internal measures, the activities, the skills development, how they contribute to the team's health, things that enable future output. There's no magic formula for weighting them.
Judgment is required.
Absolutely. And he warns strongly against the potential trap.
Rating someone based on perceived potential. not actual results.
Exactly. Assess what they did, not what you think they might do. And realistically, your assessment of an individual can't be higher than how the whole team or unit performed. Promotions, too, should be based on demonstrated performance, not just potential.
Even for high performers.
Even for high performers, always find areas for improvement. Use hindsight. What could have gone even better? It shows you're engaged and helps them grow.
Okay. For actually delivering the review, he has the 3 L's.
Yes. Level. Listen and leave yourself out.
Level.
Be honest. Be direct. Don't sugarcoat difficult messages. Your credibility depends on it.
Listen.
Make it a dialogue. Really listen to their perspective, their self-assessment, their questions. It's two-way.
Leave yourself out.
Focus on their performance, the facts, the impact. Avoid making it about your feelings, your comparisons to your own past, your biases. Keep it objective.
Level. Listen. Leave yourself out. Good mantra. He also talks about handling resignations.
Yeah, that difficult conversation. Try to understand why they're leaving. Maybe you can address it, maybe not. But definitely acknowledge their contributions and think about the impact on the rest of the team's morale.
Important considerations. Okay, linking this to compensation. Pay is task-relevant feedback.
Right. Especially for those driven by esteem or self-actualization needs, linking compensation clearly to performance provides powerful feedback. It says, we value these results.
Though money isn't always the main driver.
No, but it's rarely irrelevant. He advocates for performance bonuses, where part of the pay is variable tied to results. He suggests the percentage at risk should probably increase with seniority.
Higher stakes for higher roles. Makes sense. What makes a good bonus scheme?
Several things to consider. Individual versus team-based. How's the team defined? What's the performance period? Rely on objective numbers or subjective judgment. And crucially, it shouldn't pay out if the whole company is tanking.
Alignment matters. He also touches on the meets expectations rating.
Yeah, differentiating between someone solidly doing their current job well, non-competitor for promotion right now, versus someone promoted who is now learning the ropes at a higher level and currently meets expectations. There, a competitor, it's context.
Okay, and that tough situation recycling someone promoted too soon.
Demoting someone back to a role where they were successful. It's often seen negatively, but Grove argues it's sometimes necessary and a management responsibility. The key is to handle it supportively. That person can often succeed later with more experience. Don't write them off.
A difficult but sometimes necessary step, handled with care. Finally, the last big topic. Why training is the boss's job? Why can't managers just delegate training?
Because training is one of the highest leverage activities a manager can do. Your output depends on your team's capability. Training directly builds that capability.
You improve the team, you improve your own results.
Exactly. Plus, the manager is usually best placed to know precisely what skills the team needs based on performance gaps and future goals.
They see the needs firsthand.
Right. And Grove strongly believed managers should participate in training, even deliver some of it themselves.
Not just send people off to courses.
No. Being there shows it's important. It lets you tailor the content directly to your team's context. It builds relationships. It transfers knowledge effectively.
How should managers approach implementing training?
Start by identifying the biggest needs. Where will training have the most impact on performance? Prioritize based on leverage. Use existing materials if they fit. Start small, maybe short, focused sessions. And recognize, he says, that teaching something you do automatically can be surprisingly hard. Requires thoughtful preparation.
Good point. You have to break it down consciously. So training isn't an HR function to be outsourced. It's a core leadership responsibility.
Absolutely. High leverage, essential for team growth and output.
Wow. Okay, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into high output management. It really is amazing how much of this feels incredibly relevant today, despite being written decades ago.
It really does hold up. So, just to wrap the key ideas. Focus relentlessly on output, yours and your team's. Maximize your managerial leverage.
Find those high-impact activities.
Apply those production basics, value, measurement, forecasting, inventory, quality to management work.
Get meetings right, process versus mission, run them effectively.
Use that structured approach for decisions and planning. Remember the 6 questions. Understand motivation can't versus won't, the needs hierarchy, tapping into that self-actualization drive. Match your style to task-relevant maturity.
Build your approach.
Use appraisals and compensation as clear, task-relevant feedback.
Level, listen, leave yourself out.
And own training. It's your job and it's high leverage.
Fantastic summary. So for everyone listening, here's something to chew on this week, a provocative thought. What's just one high-leverage activity you could focus more on right now?
Good question. Where can you apply just a bit more effort for a significantly bigger return in output for yourself or your team?
Maybe think about which production principle could tighten up your own workflow. Or reflect on the TRM of your team members. Are you matching your management style effectively to help them grow?
Lots to think about there.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into high output management.